Some, no matter the age or stage in life, having hearts broken, open, torn apart, torn up, torn asunder, damaged, yet put back together. Fragile, temporal, mortal, earthly, time bended, binded, memory reminding the heart heals, mends, reconstitutes, revives, begins to beat. Slow again, slowly, cautiously, fearlessness grows with each new someone wanting to be whole again, with each new someone, maybe. Fragile, a poem of our guest, Dr. Kimmika Williams-Witherspoon, from her collection, which we'll be discussing tonight, which is it's streaming on various platforms. This collection of poems, which is really marvelous. So welcome. My name is Charles Carr, and welcome to Philly Loves Poetry, a collaboration between the Moonstone Art Center of Philadelphia and Philly Cam. The focus of our program has been and will continue to be to give our audience the experience of the rich culture of poetry in the city of Philadelphia. And it's really great to have someone who has done so much to expand the love of poetry in the community and has a specific mission of doing that, and that's Dr. Kimmika Witherspoon. Kimmika has a PhD in cultural anthropology. She has an MA in anthropology, an MFA in theater, graduate certificate in women's studies, and a BA in journalism. Kimmika is a senior associate dean of strategic initiatives and innovation for the Center for the Performing and Cinematic Arts. Kimmika is a full professor of urban theater and community engagement in the Department of Theater at Temple University. Kimmika is the author of Through Smiles and Tears, The History of African American Theater from Kemet to the Americas, which was published by Lambert Academic Publishing in 2011. And The Secret Messages in African American Theater, Hidden Meaning Embedded in Public Discourse, published by Edwin Millen, published in 2006. Kimmika is contributing poet to 50 anthologies. She has 11 books of poetry, 9 book chapters, 10 journal articles, 2 books on African American theater, which I just identified. She's published 20 articles in newspapers and magazines. She's been quoted or referenced in 61 articles, both national and international. And she has 2 collections of short stories that were published. Kimmika has produced and or consulted on 6 films, performed in over 130 poetry performances, and appeared in over 85 community outreach and engagement events. So welcome, Kimmika. It's really great to have you.
Thank you, Charles.
And I want to really pick up on something that when I was doing my intelligence work on you, on a Facebook Live, not a Facebook Live, but a Facebook video of an interview that you were giving a student. I guess it was at Temple. A very good interview, by the way. And it's something I think you one time told me, but I didn't remember it, that you graduated with a degree in journalism from Howard University.
Yes.
And that's where you were pointed in the early stages of your life after college. And you have had a life as a journalist. You even talked about an experience of going to Houston, Texas, and hitting the Great Wall of Racism down there. And I guess the man says, when he found out you were at Howard, he says, that colored college, the enlightened city of Houston. But anyway, I wanted to start with that because I wanted to start with discuss how you transitioned and used journalism as a platform for emerging as a poet and as a in theater and community engagement. Uh, because when I hear your poetry, I hear you. I feel there are elements of this is Kimmika also the journalist in a way, kind of the focus, the leanness of your work at times. And with journalists, they say you can't say too much, but you have to say what's important.
Yes. I think my journalism training, coupled with the anthropology training as writing ethnography or stories about culture, kind of blend together. I never thought of it until you started, this question, or but I guess that's true. I'm always concerned with the who, what, when, where, how, why. That journalists are taught that those are the principal questions that you have to answer, and you need to be able to do them very succinctly. um, and so I guess that's true. Now, I didn't start as a journalist. I actually started as a poet. I started writing poetry when I was super young, in elementary school, in fact. Really, really, corny stuff. Dear Lord God above, bless my boyfriend and preserve our love. That kind of thing. Didn't have a boyfriend at 8 years old. My father would have killed me. But I loved rhymes. And for the first part of my life as a poet, most of my poems were used form and rhyme. But so that the poetry was always there. Performing the poetry, knowing that I could take it outside of the printed page, it also started around that time. I started performing poetry in church, and not my own, usually the greats from the Harlem Renaissance. I did James Weldon Johnson's Go Down Death. Weep not, weep not. She is not dead. She is resting in the bosom of Jesus. I mean, those are the kinds of things I started with. But it was at Howard that I ran for the Miss Howard pageant, and I did a poem of my own as my talent. I came in second place, but that that was the aha moment that, oh, I can kind of do this thing. And then the journalism is always in the back of my mind as I'm telling these stories about my community. So thank you for making me think of it that way. But yeah, I think it's all kind of matched up. It's lined up over my career.
Yeah, yeah. Um, the other thing is, yes, and reading your bio, it comes out, and I'm really focusing on, your your recent work. Got to have game, but you're more than just, a sedentary poet artist. You're an activist. And you've always, and I mentioned about community engagement, but you really engaged in some issues that are real big issues. Like there's one where an interview I saw where you were part of a team that was using, I guess, poetry and theater uh, around the drug crisis
Yes.
in our community, which I thought was really fascinating. And I really felt, oh, I wish I had seen some of that. I wish I could hear some of that, and how that approach is so viable to the community and the community dealing with the opiate crisis, which you were doing. And around the time, of course, of Black Lives Matter and the whole swell of racism again that had to be the. I'm just saying that you are an engaged poet, artist, a teacher, and you really try to motivate your students that this is a role that they have as artists.
Yes, I do believe in it. That, for those of us who have been either working towards this gift or given a gift or a talent, that I think if we don't use it to effect change, then we're not living up to our full potential. Um, and throughout history, our writers, our poets, our literary giants were the ones who could take on those big issues that perhaps others thought were too big for them um, to begin to unpack. And so I firmly believe in it. I know that words can change people's lives. I've lived it. And at one point, when I taught in the prisons with the Pennsylvania Prison Society, I remember a student of mine in the women's correctional facility who said, uh, Miss Kimmika, if I had known about poetry, I might not have ended up in here.
Mm.
And I constantly think about that. That my responsibility is to teach everybody what we can do when we channel our energies into something that can be positive, and then to perform it, we give it to a larger audience so that they too can be changed. And so I've coupled both art forms together. I've always referred to myself as a performance
Yes.
poet, and I can't see life any other way. It perhaps it's still journalism, but it's I'm putting it on its feet.
Right.
It's absolutely anthropology. It's cultural anthropology. It's absolutely ethnography. Um, I'm telling stories about the lived experience of participants in various cultures, and but hopefully by tackling some of those larger issues like drug addiction, like the ways in which so many of our civil liberties are being assaulted, just the the ways in which some individuals are teaching under siege. I mean, those issues have to be addressed. And if I've got voice, if I've got words, it's my responsibility to take some of that on.
Yeah. Going to the title of your book when I first saw it, you gotta have game. It really struck me how present that title is for how we're living today.
Yes.
And I say this because it's befitting our times right now, in which there are so many opposing, definitions and renderings of the meaning and purpose of our society.
Hmm.
I always feel, and more so today than ever, that we're always on the brink of another struggle. And so I'll just say more about, we're always on the brink of another game, and with ever challenging opponents. There's other teams out there that are trying to take over our world, our life. Um, so what really drove you to use that? I mean, it's a well-known, title. When you say that to somebody, they know what you're saying, but the uh, that you use this title, I thought was amazing, given how it fits right now.
I'm glad that you found it current, that it had resonance for you. I actually became acquainted with this idea of having game from when the time when I lived in Texas. I actually ended up marrying a man I'd never seen before. Well, I'd seen three times before, before we got married, before we eloped. And I ended up living in Texas. And in Texas, everybody had to have a pit bull, a pickup truck, and a shotgun. So we did, because everybody had to have one. And that was before the pit bull craze began. But when they were talking about these dogs, you knew the ones that had game, the ones that could go and move and push and drag tires along with them to build up their strength. You could tell a game dog, one that wouldn't quit. And so that's how that phrase entered into my lexicon. But over the years, um, the line actually, I refer to it with regard to my own self, because we live through challenges, we live through struggles, we have highs and lows. And sometimes we feel like we want to give up, but the victory is to the individual who has game, who is willing to keep going. Um, and then when you think about the world that we're living in now, being able to not only have game, but also recognize the games being played takes it into a yet another direction. Um, and so the line actually comes from one of the pieces on the album. Um, Kerplunk, I think, is the one it's in. And it's all about those trials, those tribulations, those joys, those highs and those lows. But the one thing that I am proud of is I wouldn't give up. I kept going. I kept pressing forward. And I tell my students sometimes when things are really challenging, and well, Dr. Kimmika, what do I do? And I'll say, you're going to get up in the morning, you're going to put one foot out of bed and then the other, and you're going to stand up and put one foot in front of the other until the day has been complete. And then the next day, you're going to do it again. And the next day, you're going to do it again. And before you know it, this will be in the rear view mirror and you will have made it through. Well, in that sense of the term, I think we all have to have game because there's so many assaults, there's so many challenging ideas that we're being bombarded with, and we cannot give up. We cannot throw our hands up in the air. We cannot fail to stand up and stand for something. We've got to have game. You got to have game.
Yeah. And so when you read this collection, as you're speaking, I don't want to use sports analogies, but I'm going to have to.
Okay.
I really feel that this is you talking to your students. This is you talking to a community and empowering them. You know, and it's not. The thing is, it's not focused on problems. It's focused on strategy. And it's to me, it's focused on a strategy within one. That it
Mm,
what you just gave a paraphrase of somebody saying, well, "What do I do?" Well, these poems are expanded version of what you do, how you think, how you can approach, and the strength in these words. So I think the collection gives people strength, should give people strength, and not say, geez, this is just another thing. This is just another round of poetry. I really didn't see that. The the other part of this is so exciting to me as someone who loves jazz music is how you have married
mhm,
these poems to jazz music. And the one thing that really fascinates me is I listen to every one and
mhm,
I listen to the music and I pause and I say, I wonder what Kamiga is going to do with this title. I'm just reading a few words and then I hit the thing and it might be just a bass play.
mhm,
It might be you just hear the brush on the cymbal
mhm.
or you hear maybe a piano and a sax playing, and then you hear the quintet doing the thing. So I say to myself, well, that sounds so easy, but how did you go about with your team in marrying those pieces so the pieces don't seem to be out of, the jazz doesn't seem to be disconnected from the words. They seem to be, walking right along with you.
Oh, well, thank you for saying that. I mean, I have to give big ups to David Pasbrick, who is, the sound engineer extraordinaire, one of my collaborators on the piece, and Adam Vadiscus, who wrote original percussion music for some of the pieces. When we were in the studio, well, first I should say that this is the first spoken word album that the Temple production company has ever done. We have our own sound studio, BCMD, standing for the Boyer School of Music and Dance, and they regularly create these albums, these jazz albums and these classical albums, have been Grammy nominated a few times. But my Dean Robert Stroker, wanted to move into spoken word, and so this is the first attempt at that for the studio. And when we were in the studio recording the pieces, David and I would stop, and I'd come in and we'd listen to some, and then I'd go, "Oh, I hear blah blah blah," "Oh, I hear saxophone here,"
Yeah.
and he took copious notes, and there's so many talented alumni and students at Temple University that we were able to kind of make this happen. Um, we learned a great deal. This was the first in a 2-album series, so the second album is supposed to come out this year.
Mm.
What we learned is that some streaming services don't like it if the music doesn't go on for at least 3 minutes. So when we go back to do the second album, we're gonna have to rethink some of those pieces. And
You're just going to have to make your poems longer.
and I'll take that excuse. I will. But the musicians are just so incredible, and the Center for the Performing and Cinematic Arts, we do such great work. I'm just so proud to be one of the inaugural spoken word artists that they've taken on, and I'm telling you, the music is beautiful. And I'm a jazz aficionado, even though I don't know names of pieces. I mean, I know Coltrane, of course, but I'm not as jazz savvy as some of my colleagues. But these alumni and students are just fabulous.
Yeah.
And if I can do a slight plug, they run the Jazz Cafe every Thursday from 4 to 6:30 in the TPEC Lounge on Broad and Paulette Walk. And you get to hear some of these really, really fine students and some of the recent
Wow.
alums. So if you're ever,
Yeah.
on Temple's campus, Jazz Cafe every Thursday,
Jazz.
run by Vice Dean David Brown.
Wow.
So,
Thank you for that. Thank
so
you for that.
there's just so much going on. There's so much
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah. Yeah, I really love the pieces. I even told you, I know I've listened to one of the musicians on this play live, and that's Mike Boone. He's a bassist, and I've seen him with different other musicians, and he's a bassist that really stands out,
Oh,
but he doesn't show off to stand out. You just he's such an accomplished musician, and he always stays within the structure, of a piece. But I can't name another bassist in Philadelphia. Honestly, I can't. But if you say, "Hey Charles, could you find us a bassist?" I say, "Yeah, I think I can. If I have it, you give me his phone number. His name is Mike Boone." I wanted to move on to the style and the approach of your poetry, and I want to say this. Um, I really take a poem in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't like to drop back and kind of figure it out. I like to say, how's it hitting you? How is this hitting you immediately? How is this hitting you emotionally? How's it hitting your ear? And I have to say, well, I was listening to this, and this might sound a little bit far out. I felt like I was listening to Nina Simone singing "Mississippi Goddamn."
Oh wow, that's high praise and such
Because
a compliment.
I felt the words were like hitting me on my chest, and it's not violence; it's just boom, boom, but she's one of my absolute favorite. But I said to myself, Mississippi, goddamn, and but your approach, the structure of your poems, the beat of them, the economy of it. Can you talk about why you've selected this way to create and structure your work?
And I don't really have an answer for you. when the lines come to me, when the muse hits, or when I reach up and sort of dip my hand in the creative energies that are just going around the universe, the line and the words tell me how they should be written and how they should be spoken. I hear the musicality in it. Um, Granted, I'm not a singer. I've sung in, church choirs my entire life, so I can hold a beat because I went to a Black church. But I don't call myself a musician, but I think that there's that poetry has its own um, repertoire of musicality, and I hope my work can, or at least takes advantage of that. In terms of the brevity of some of the form, I don't know. It tells me how it should be written and how it should be spoken, and all I have to do is read a line over and over again, and I'll know where the line breaks are. I'll know where the beats are. I'll know where the pauses are. Um, I tell people that, well, Zara Neale Hurston used to talk about how ancestors could possess us and sit on our shoulders. Maybe that's it, that wordsmiths are invading my space and sitting on my shoulder or in my chakra. I don't know. But I've always been able to sort of find uh, that safe space or sacred space to do that creation.
Yeah. The way you stack, stack your poems and
Hmm.
stack the words, there's an energy from start to finish that it builds. I
Yes.
mean, that's why the musicality of there. But, and so you're just saying this is intuitive, but the reader feels that energy of the stack, the motions in the words getting stacked up until the end. And sometimes, the end, like the poem I read, it's a real silence to it.
Mm.
There's a real silence to it. It leaves you in that place, but the words as you've structured them, not long lines, and stack them, it creates a certain energy. I think this is unique to you, and I've heard you read many times. So therefore, I mean, I wasn't surprised. I never saw your work on a page. Now that I've seen it on the page, and now that I hear it, you know, on the album and listening to the music, I see that stacking process, going forward. I think it's really marvelous. So I'm really looking forward to this second project that's going to marry your, your poetry to music. I think it'll be exciting, and I hope that there's more of that. I mean, there's more of that at Temple, but even more opportunities for people to use that kind of collaboration. And-
Well, the good thing is, I've been teaching the poetry as performance class for almost 20 years now, and then the poetic ethnography class for at least 10 or 15. And so that means I've got hordes of students, alumni out there who have taken the class and been privy to that kind of poetry construction, and many of them sort of replicate it, so that if you do bring in some of those younger poets, you'll know the ones who have been beneficiaries of sort of having to listen to me,
Mhm.
having to listen to me over and over again. But I don't even know where it comes from. Again, I think the words in the poetry tells me how I should write it, how I should speak it. Just like when I'm writing a play, the character will come and knock on my shoulder at night when I'm sleeping and demand that I write it a particular way. So
Mhm.
I don't I I really don't know how I do it, or it's just something that I've always done.
Yeah, well,
Um,
that's really great to hear. Kind of the intuitive quality of it, that you don't have a packaged program that you're feeding. You're feeding poetry. You're feeding it. This is what I intuitively, emotionally I feel, and this is the way I'm going to go with it.
Yes.
So, speaking of that, we're really at that time where we want to hear you
Aha.
read your poem. So, the stage is yours, and we look forward to hearing you. And you have time to give us these wonderful poems.
Well, thank you, Charles. This first one is articulate. Um, and I get those words of the day, and sometimes they're so bizarre that I love them, and I have to try to use them in a poem. And this one was agathological, agathological, which means composed of both good and evil. And so the poem that came out of it is called Articulate. Tongue tied tongues, tired of all the screaming, shouting, poetating, honoring all the narratives without voice, screamed into the void, etched into silence, made muted because of age or race or sex or class difference. Asinine. How power punctuates voice, stymies, stifles, suffocates each line, phrase, or sentence before it starts. Ecologies and economies work, want to keep it that way. The mass marginalized, the multitude, the many unable to get a word out, which is not the same thing as lost for words. I expect, though, without words, whole communities can feel lost, get lost, be lost like powerlessness. But we've got the words at our disposal. And their proposal to shut us up, struck dumb, dumbstruck, clear in the will to speak, but speechless, bereft of speech, no more, with no more. Word magic, tying tongues to the language of the ancients, we call up, call on, call out wisdom of the sages, poets, prophets, storytellers, and griots of all ages, no longer silent. Tongue tied, tongue tired, tongue heavy, agathological, neither good nor bad, right nor wrong, black or white, no matter, refusing to stay silent. I've got to tell their story. So, in my poetry is performance class, and I teach a lot of intro to theater courses as well, but poetry is performance and poetic ethnography, two of the courses that I teach, are probably two of the favorite courses of mine. In the poetry is performance class, every time the students come in, I give them a prompt for the day. They've got 10 minutes to whatever comes out of their head. That's what you're writing down in your journal. Eventually, you can edit it and it becomes something else. For one of those classes, I wrote a poem about what they were doing, and it's called Performance Poetry Class. The revelry, giddiness, edutainment, and fun, son, there's nothing like it. When performance poets come to play, no emotion sealed, no subject not subjected scrutiny, no taboo, secret unrevealed. When poets come to play, through truth and consequence, the haunting merriment is real. Wearing thin skin inside out, swaddling memory and years, garbed in scars and pain, joys and tears, reliving hurts and highs again and again. Tongue twister, nomo maker, word master, life's trickster, jocularity where mirth and misery mockingly combined. For the poet performer, there is reason to the rhyme. Every season has its time. Gaudamus, when poets come to play. This is one from the album. But I don't remember if it's on. I think it's on the first one. Yes, it's Prophecy and Damaged Good, and it's inspired by Anthony Tidd, who did an album 21 years ago called The Child of Troubled Times. Anthony was a guest in one of my, or in my class last year, well, the year before last, rather. And then eventually they would do a performance with jazz artists and Ursula Ruckers and a whole bunch of other poet performers at the Clef Club. And J. Michael Harrison from The Bridge asked me to do to do a poem as well. And so this is one that I wrote for him, Prophecy and Damaged Goods, inspired by Anthony Tidd. Searching for a word, an answer, a hope or a dream. Searching for a word, an answer, a hope or a dream. Searching for a word, an answer, a hope or a dream. He was bright skinned, rugged, adorable in a broken sort of way. Curly hair, black and Latino, gregarious, loud, craving for attention he probably never got at home, demanding to be heard. The brown-skinned girl one aisle over was busy trying. Eavesdropping, he told the children gathered round him, when I grow up, I'm going to be a drug dealer, have lots of money, bitches and hoes and cars and a big ass black Hummer. His words. Glancing at the brown girl, then quickly turning back to his entourage, he said, 8 years old or so, third grade, elementary school in the hood, West Philly. They, them, chillin', riveted in glee to every vulgar thing he said, fist to mouth, hunched over, tickled and chuckling in agreement, both embarrassed and bolstered by the sheer arrogance of little bro's swagger. Yeah, that's right, yeah, yeah, that's right, yeah, yeah, that's right, yeah. But you're still going to need to know how to read and write, the poet said. No, I don't, he retorted right back, defiant even in his brokenness, gesturing as if he had lots and lots of dollar bills, y'all. All I need to know is how to count my money. All I need to know is how to count my money. All I need to know is how to count my money. The brown-skinned girl, engrossed in the assignment, looked up absently, searching for a word, an answer, a hope, or a dream. The boy thought he had finally captured her attention, and when I grow up, she gonna be my wife, he said, proudly pointing, 'cause I'm gonna marry her. The poet leaned in constructively, almost whispering, then you probably shouldn't have mentioned the bit about all the bitches and whores. He was bright-skinned, rugged, adorable in a broken sort of way. Curly hair, black and Latino, gregarious, loud, craving for attention he probably never got at home, demanding to be heard. The brown-skinned girl, one aisle over, was busy trying to write, trying to find the out, even at this tender age, so she could succeed, closing her eyes every now and again to find the words, answers, feelings, hidden transcript, instigating memory. He got louder, punctuating profanities with the other noise, laughter distracting more and more of the other boys, they say, will be boys. Kids just being kids gone haywire. Something's happening to the children, y'all. A child of troubled times. In earnest, don't you want to write the poem? The poet asked. No, he said. Why? The poet wondered. Why should I? Little brother thundered. The brown girl looked up at that and then back, finally hearing for the first time for real little brother man's rap. 'Cause I don't need to know how to read and write, he said. I don't need nothing. I don't need none of this stuff. I'm gonna be a drug dealer when I grow up. DHS, the Department of Human Services, would later document his challenging living conditions. A social worker would point to lingering effects of institutional racism. A public defender would argue his case and the lack of role models in the neighborhood. The reporter would write about urban K through 12 education, young white teachers trying to manage 38 kids in a classroom. The parole officer would talk about recidivism and the lack of good jobs or programs for reentry. The anthropologist will publish the case study. The undertaker will try to make the casket presentable despite bullet holes and wounds. The preacher will preach a eulogy, unfortunately becoming standard while a mother weeps. And a young girl with a whole bunch of kids, rugged, adorable babies in a broken sort of way, sits in disbelief. Time binding, 8 years old. I don't need nothing. I don't need none of this stuff. I'm gonna be a drug dealer when I grow up. The poet peeped it all. Then, peering through the cityscape, taking in the whole view in miniature, lives turned to fate, almost in a whisper, and to themselves are dead. The poet said, heavy on the heart ever since, saddened by just another child of troubled time. Searching for a word, an answer, a hope, or a dream. Searching for a word, an answer, a hope, or a dream. Searching for a word, an answer, a hope, or a dream. Thank you. That's a true story. It happened to me in a elementary school in West Philly years ago, and I never forgot it. This is entitled When Old is New. In the mind of the mind, despite the mind, dis-ease. This is a disease. This scathing desire to cook, forge, and fire hate. Race and racism's fate set loose free again when old is new. In the mind of the time when we find all manner and kind of heartlessness, heart missing along with humanity, despite the bind of time, a recognition that the evil we've let loose is no genie in the bottle to ever return. Instead, full throttle, a war is coming, if not already here. No longer abroad. It's in our backyard, domestic, each terrorist bullet, assault rifle. Court case dismissed, state's evidence released, firearm or gun shooting into a classroom, a crowd, a parking lot, a church, synagogue, parade, a museum. First Amendment right be damned. Land of the free, home of the brave. We're in a civil war again. Only this time, there are no cannons, and the battlefields have not become tourist grounds yet. In the mind of the mind, despite the mind, dis-ease, disease, loathing, aversion, abominate, this scathing desire to cook, forge, and fire hate is a dysfunction. Race and racism's fate set loose, free again when old is new. I know. I'm coming out of it. This is simply called a crack of morning. I am crack of morning. Light in the shadow of dark, Julie Andrews. These are a few of my favorite things, coupled with Coltrane's riff on the same. Smells of mommy's fresh baked bread from oven and the promise of dawn's early light. I am late night musings on Gwen Brooks, Audre Lorde with Maya and Sonia in tow, Grand Marnier, peas and rice and conch salad, Zane's kisses, Aman's soft, just born new love, and holidays and birthday, new signature poem with each passing year. I am mother, daughter, sister, cousin, friend, grandmother, scholar, poet, professor. I am, I am, I am. I am keeper of tradition, managing mirth, mayhem, and holding back disaster. I am warrior words. Thank you. I'm winding down now, I promise. This one, it starts with a prologue from George Orwell. George Orwell wrote, "Whoever controls the present controls the past. Whoever controls the past controls the future." 1984. Tie a yellow string. Big estate with more at stake controls narratives. School kids can't know. Take correction tape to history. There's wealth in school books. Alternative truths, buyer, writer for school books, change the narrative. Slaves to immigrants. The biggest heart of Texas, wiped clean, trail of tears. Liberation stead Mexican war to annex all of the Southwest. Orwell said, whoever controls the present controls past and future too. Who knew whiteout could eradicate history while we try remember? Now that one is a series of haikus strung together. Sonia taught us all how to write a haiku, and sometimes I just use it in other pieces. This one is called Walking Through Memories. Thick, sanguine, blood memory, caught up remembering mind and thought and experience long since forgot, long departed ancestors ride recompense like a horse, or better yet, a mule, fueling reminiscences retained but not my own. Epic memory, walking plains and lands and mountains barely remembered, yet recognizing scars from the cuts and bruises along the way. Screams and joys and tragedies, deja vu, that sneak, that creep, that warrants blood peeking through when I remember. This too is a new one. It's called On the Edge of Comfort Zone. There is growth there, fear of failure, mixed with the anxious excitement elixir, each experience making us new with every leap of faith, each forward step in the unknown. Absolution or abyss, we grow, I grow, he, she, me, them, they learn, know, go, show, stretch, free on the edge, comfort zone. Mere suggestion, not limitation. Comfort zone, cozy, not complacent. Comfort zone meant for crossing. Just over the edge, ledge, wedge, mindset, place, space, condition, the living increase. Opportunity expands. Dreams made real. Possibilities prized, eyes wide open again and again, on the cusp of always becoming new. And let's see. And this one is from the album You Gotta Have Game. It's called Why. To change the world. To fortify, shield, protect my heart, spirit, self, soul. As balm when I feel beaten, battered, broken. to armor and protect my dreams of hope, harbor, and happy ever after. Painfully sometimes, but plainly passionate. To insulate from the cold, to vent vapors of exasperation when vexed, full of can't take it no more screams of rage, anger, and disgust, must blow off steam sometimes when I feel worn, weary, belabored, and bruised. Like Zora Neale Hurston's Tell My Horse, made accountable to ancestors, spirits, nightmares, dreams. As conduit, whispering thought through flesh to make inspiration active, to keep the secrets charged, to commemorate the sages and their service, to chronicle the knowledge and the learned learning like Langston's Jesse B. Simple in the average, ordinary, everydays of our lives, while controlling the torrent and the terrors that others might want to heap upon me. Bard, griot, performance poet, oral prescription. You see, really, it's just to breathe. Calm, easy, everyday, voiced, heard, not silenced, made invisible, nor giving in, knocked down sometimes. But you best believe never out, not yet. Every single time, keep getting up. Keep getting up. Keep getting up. Crying when you have to. Smiling, trying, and yet still fighting. Distilling memory, image, and experience. We, me, us, our story, her story, history. This is why I write. Thank you.
Something else you want to give us? The floor is still yours.
Well, those were the ones that I
Yeah,
picked to
a
do.
lot of tremendous energy there. I mean, yeah, you remind me you are an actor. You remind me that you theater, and it really comes out as beautiful performance, powerful performance, and I'm so grateful that you brought this to Philly Loves that people can see and hear this, and young people can see and hear this. I really feel that your students are really blessed to have someone as dedicated and as talented as you are. And as I said, I'm really looking forward to the next chapter in this piece that you're working on, and all chapters going forward. Uh, so I thank you very much, and I, need to bring the show to a close by, recognizing Moonstone Arts Center,
Yes.
and that you've always been there for Moonstone Arts, involved in a lot of our annual readings, our dedicated readings, uh, and so we're really grateful that we have you, Kimmika. That we're grateful that we've had your talent,
Oh, thank you.
as part of the Moonstone family. Um, and we're really at that point where it's been 40 years,
Yes.
and it's time to step back at Moonstone and to recognize the contributions that they have made to this community of Philadelphia and that they have made to artists of all kinds. We're not only talking about, yes, we've always had the poetry, but Larry has done so many other things that we don't even talk about much. his whole hidden history
Yes.
series and bringing parts of history that people don't know about, or that it's a footnote in history that he elevated to something else. Uh, and his Black Raiders Conference, all the things that he has done, the bookstore that they had, and how that was so different. But the Moonstone Arts has been so pivotal to realize that on a yearly basis we do about 100 readings,
Mm-hmm.
and so that touches about close to 300 artists, poets, young poets, poets that are coming there for the first time, that are feeling their way. That's one part of it. The other part is the publishing full books of poetry, anthologies that meet the time. We just had a short anthology that was inspired by the uh, horrible death of that young man out in West Philadelphia by a police officer as he was sitting in his car.
Right.
And Larry latched on to that from a poem that one poet sent to him. And I actually went to the reading of it. It was very powerful. I'm only saying that to say Larry is always trying to meet the current reality of our situation with the art of poetry, and is showing us that poetry does have a very powerful voice and can have a very powerful voice. So on September the 25th, uh, there is a committee that has been formed, and there's going to be a celebration of Larry, the Moonstone Arts, at the Free Library on the top floor. And if people that want to know more about that can go to Moonstone Arts Center .com and find more about it. It would be great if people came out and supported it, but also realize Larry is. We've been doing this for this long, on not much support.
Mm.
We don't have like deep pockets. We don't have deep pockets in Moonstone. So I only say that uh, look for ways, my audience, of ways you can support us. And there's so many ways you can support us, but you can go to the site and you can find ways you can support us. Get involved. Moonstone does a series every Wednesday night at Fergie's Pub of local poets, and they have an open mic of poets that might be the first time that they've ever gone any place to read a poem. And to be honest with you, it's marvelous. You have these people that haven't really read a poem in public and go up there, and people are saying, "Wow, I mean, you ought to keep going." And it's that enthusiasm that hits them, that they know they have something. It's that motivation that they get. Oh, I do have something. I am a poet. I can do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so all the ways that Moonstone, all the ways Larry and other people, all the people who have been associated with Moonstone have done to promote poetry in the city. And Kimmika, you're part of that family that has really helped to bring the art to the community, and we very much appreciate you. Uh, so that's my advertisement for the evening. I very much appreciated that I was able to, recruit you to come on and be our guest on Philly Loves Poetry. It was a really great show. I learned a lot, and I let's stay in touch. And I thank Sergio for making this happen. We were supposed to be in the studio. I wanted to be in the studio, sitting next to Kimmika, but tonight the debate is in Philadelphia, and there's so much unknown about streets being blocked off and protests and this, and so we had to go virtual, back to virtual. Uh, but maybe next time we do this, Kimmika, you're going to be live. You're going to be sitting in the studio next to me.
Absolutely. I
Okay.
can't wait to do it.
All right.
And just to let everyone know that the You Gotta Have Game is available on all the streaming services. So please check it out.
Absolutely. Thank you again. And thank you, Sergio, for making this happen.